Okay, so we've said a prayer. I just want to thank you all for being here. Please don't put anything in the chat because I can't see it. And if possible, if you could just wait till I give an opportunity to ask questions or contribute. It's nice to have contribution. So if that's okay, no hands up, no messages, please. And I'll give a chance hopefully throughout. So what I'm going to talk about today, I think I did a study earlier on in the year called, I think it was called the Blitzkrieg of the Administrative State. So I kind of want to go on from there. I've got lots of different things going on here in the background, so my apologies if I go quiet or slow. Let me know if I go offline or anything like that, please, Debbie. Thanks.
Yes,
So what I've been trying, thanks. What I've been trying to do is sort of trace what's been going on, like we all have with the administrative state and who's sort of influencing Trump and policies. So there's been a mixture, hasn't there, of elites and billionaires that have been influencing. And I want to just mention or hone in on just like a few, maybe 3 or 4 people. So the first person I want to talk about, now I know if you go out there, you'll find conspiracy theories, you'll find some weird stuff. I'm just sticking to facts, and I haven't looked at any of the strange stuff that's written about these people. So I want to talk about Peter Thiel first. Can you see me writing on the board? I know it's small, I'll share the board later, but can you see me writing?
Yes, we can.
So I want to talk about Peter Thiel and his company, Palantir. Technology. So he's part, as you know, of the billionaire Silicon Valley tech. He has left Silicon Valley due to political reasons and said it's now gone, leaning too far left. I know he's moved from San Francisco to California. He's a very influential in tech and in politics. So he also co-founded PayPal with Elon Musk, and he sold it to eBay. He's also an outside investor, the first outside investor in Facebook. And obviously, even though he's a co-founder of Palantir Technology, it's kind of like there's other people like Alex Karp, and I'll go into that a bit later. But he basically Palantir, they provide software platforms that help organizations analyze and integrate data. So their tools are designed to support decision making and operational efficiency within companies. They're like an AI tool. They do a lot of work for the US government and for the military. Actually, I think they got a £10 billion contract, which over 10 years with the US government's military army. So I've been looking into it. He's quite an interesting individual. He challenges conventional thinking about societal progress. He says he's a libertarian. We all know about libertarians through Albert Tess. Brought that to us, I think. So I'm going to put PT. This means Peter Thiel. So he's a libertarian. I think he's very libertarian in his politics, his opinion about politics, when I've done my research on him. I think his faith is a little bit of a mixture of libertarian and other beliefs. He grew up as a Lutheran. He says he's conservative Christian as well. He's a well-read individual. It's difficult to quite know how he thinks. He does believe basically that the Bible is the greatest book ever, written. He did state in 2023, as I say, he follows some philosophers that have got some strange thinking. So he did state in a conference in 2023, he wished for a return to a Constantinian Christianity. So we all know who Constantine is. Constantine ended persecution of the Christians, and Christianity became the religion. I think after a while, paganism took a while to go away. And I just want to, on a side note about the persecution of Christians, I just want to state that Trump attacked ISIS in Nigeria yesterday or the day before due to them persecuting Christians. So what influence are these elites or billionaires having on Trump's presidency besides what I'm just mentioning? So in the first presidency of Donald Trump in 2016, he donated, or he contributed to him being elected. That was the 2016 election campaign. As I said, his ideology is conservative. He advocates for minimal government, obviously with tech regulations. So minimal government and obviously minimal tech regulations. And he challenges democratic norms. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. And he's basically against democracy, obviously. It's been said that he wants unfettered free markets, minimal regulations for tech, like I said. And critics state that he has a belief that society should be run like a corporation, with like an unelected leader like himself. And basically like a CEO running the government, and he favourites powerful executives. Some of that information I got from Politico. I think it's quite important that we reference people or where we get the information from. So Peter Thiel financially backed somebody in 2024 campaign, and that was JD Vance. He did not back Trump. So he put a lot of money behind JD Vance. I think it might have been about 15 million, the campaign. So if you do enough research into Peter Thiel, you'll notice that he's a very long-term strategist. He looks years into the future with regards to how he'd like to see the world or the US government being run. For instance, like the name of his company, Palantir, he got that name from the Lord of the Rings movie, which I've never watched, but I believe there's a stone. It's called the Seeing Stone. And the meaning of that is he who looks afar. And that is the name of the company Palantir. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. So he's been waiting a very long time, Peter Thiel, for this moment we're seeing in Earth's history now with the US government and Trump. Thiel goes back years trying to influence tech and, of course, and also politics. So in 2025, I've got the sun right in my eyes from the window. In 2024 and 2025, others have been planning with him for a post-Trump MAGA and USA. So Elder Paminda shared an article, I think, an important one from the Washington Post. It was called The Secret Donor Circle That Lifted J.D. Vance is Now Writing MAGA's Future. So what they meant by that was basically, the article was kind of looking past Trump. In the article, it mentions a guy called Chris Buskirk and how he has put the tech elites at the center of power in Trump's Washington. So back in 2019, a small group of right-wing donors had a summit to secure the future of MAGA movement. Their aim was basically to have a singular candidate, President Trump, into an enduring political coalition of voters, donors that cement a radical transformation of the GOP and ultimately, of course, the USA. And that was a success, and that was 2019. That meeting was convened by Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance in 2019 and others, but the person in the room that solidified the group's ambitions was Chris Buskirk. He's a Christian, I think. I'm not sure if he's MAGA. So the media suggests that these elites have a collective ambition to give a select few of individuals power, as they believe it is vital for the country's future and role in shaping the government and lasting political power in the US and globally. So the media stated that when Peter Thiel stepped down in 2022, which is midterm elections, of course, from the board of Meta, Facebook's parent company, he wanted to dedicate more time and resources in getting Trump and tech-aligned Republican candidates for the 2024 election. Some say in the media that it was a pivotal point in politics, and it actually, as we can see, it was. Any questions at this point? Or comments, anything to contribute? So the media call Peter Thiel the GOP kingmaker due to his mega donations. Peter was part of Trump's transition team as well, I think, in 2016. And he put forth a lot of techs at the time, and I think Trump only, used a few, and in 2025, obviously more. So there's been a lot of convergence with the elite in 2024 election, whether it's MAGA movement with the anti-establishment, amongst other things, whether it's tech individuals like Thiel, your right-wing religious Republicans, the young ones like the Theo Bros. They've all kind of consolidated together now and found common ground in their politics and their agenda. Since Trump's second term, Peter Thiel has been instrumental, as we can see. He's an instrumental force in MAGA's financing and political strategy, especially for tech. So Palantir they basically, as I told you what they do, and they collect and kind of control data. It's their tools. It's not like Peter Thiel, it's their tools, their AI tools in different parts of the government. So Palantir started with contribution and funding from the CIA. So I just want to mention that. So they work with the CIA, and that was to do with anti-fraud work. And they work with defense and homeland security, the Pentagon. Palantir works also with collecting human healthcare and human what's it called? Human care and human healthcare services or something like that. And they also do, they do with the tax collecting. So they work with the IRS with the data, and they also, a big one, they work with ICE, the immigration, customs and enforcement. ICE, actually, they've been working with since 2016. The media stated it's kind of unprecedented for one firm to work in all these areas of the US government. collecting data, or, you know, joining data together, having the tools to do that. There is concerns about privacy and civil liberties. Regarding ICE, the agency deportations, which, as I said, started in 2016, it's ramped up, as you can see, in 2025. I think there's about 66,000 now in detention centres, illegal immigrants, across the US. And there has been some deaths as well due to the conditions of the centres. A couple of days ago in the Washington Post, it was stated that Trump wants to build more detention centres and hold at least 80,000 illegal immigrants. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to deport people who have come to the US illegally. I'm just saying that there has been some talk about the tools that they use have a little bit of bias and racist bias and discrimination. I don't know. So Palantir was asked by ICE to build Immigration OS. Let's put that in here. Which is an AI-powered live surveillance platform designed to track people who they want to deport due to being illegal immigrants, of course. Obviously, I've said sadly, some seem to be getting deported that are innocent. We've seen court cases about that. And we know that children are being separated again from their parents, whether that's just what happens when you're an illegal immigrant and it's, you know, it happened in 2016. I'm not going to comment how awful it is, but, you know, it's happening again in 2025. So an article from Prospect stated they use this phone data to track individuals with ICE. And as I said, there are claims that it is racist biases there, discrimination. Years ago, I think in New Orleans, I'm not sure if I'm correct on the place, Palantir worked with the police, combining police data, public records, and social media analysis to predict future perpetrators of crime. Now, that sounds very positive because who wants crime and where they live? However, as I said, there's been a lot of criticism that their tools are entrenched with racial biases, which obviously Palantir have denied. So they're expanding their presence, Palantir, into commercial sector, including banking, where their tools will support the integration of AI into operational workflows. This means it will help banks to know how data flows, who has access, how decisions are made, and it helps with compliance and risk services. So it all sounds really good in some places. Obviously, they've had some criticism using AA banking. It raises concerns about data collection practices and if there could be any intrusive monitoring. So I don't want to be completely negative about Palantir tech tools. I know they have been good. They're doing a lot of efficient things for companies, which I would agree on. But let's just say in the future, there's a crisis at Daniel 12.1 at the close of probation. In a crisis, people give up their civil liberties, and that could be asked of them. And if data gets into the wrong hands, which it has done before, I'll explain that in a minute, you know, your privacy could be at stake. You may have to capitulate due to a crisis. Basically a test of really what side you're on if you're having to give up your liberties. So Palantir was also, it had a lot to do with the Ukraine war. So the war missions in Ukraine, they basically gave their tools for war, you know, the drones and stuff and on the ground in the war for free. I'll have to do this board again, I think. So they offered the tools for free to Zelensky to help with the war against Russia. Obviously, there's been some questions about that with regards to, morally. When the CEO of Palantir, Alex Cart, was asked about these tools used in war, he says, that, obviously it's up to the partnerships, the people who, using the tools. He says, yes, sometimes the tools kill people on the ground, innocent people. That's just the story of war, isn't it? But I'm just informing you of the facts of what's being used, how the Palantir are working. On the 7th of October, the terror attacks and the start of the Gaza war, Palantir had entered into an agreement with Israel to use their tools as well. So they use their tools in Gaza. With the war mission. And I'm not sure if you know, but they've been lobbying for many years to get contracts in the UK. So they also now work with the efficiency of their tools and collecting data for the NHS in the UK. I think they've been trying with Ministry of Defence as well, but I'm not sure if they've got any contracts there yet in the UK. In 2025, Palantir entered into a 1.5 billion strategic partnership with Britain. Critics have concern with Palantir expanding its influence over the UK's public sector, as they have pointed out that they believe that the company's more morally ambiguous work as evidence that it is unsuitable as a suitable government partner with the United Kingdom. I got some of that information from Prospect article. So we know Palantir has been working with the US since 9/11 attacks. You'll have to check this because I'm not sure, but I don't know whether their tools help track down Osama bin Laden. But AI has been very slow, and obviously they've been very frustrated because of the democratic regulations and the restrictions on tech advancement with policies due to concern with AI, of course. But that's all changed under Trump. Any questions so far regarding that? So I've just been talking about where Palantir technologies work. It's not just,
yeah. I've just got a question. You know, when you've got Ukraine war mission, what did you say that they did there? Did you say that who gave the Ukraine things free? Is it this company? Did you say, or
yeah, Palantir company, yeah. So Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, the CEO, they went and offered their technology to Zelensky.
Oh, their technology. Oh, right,
yeah.
got you. To Ukraine, got you. Okay.
The AI tools, the things, the drones and things like that. And they did the same
Right.
with Gaza, with Israel. They went into a contract with them as well.
Oh, gosh. Right,
Any
okay,
other
thanks, Natalie.
questions? Okay, I'm going to carry on. So back to Peter Thiel. So as far back as 2009, Peter Thiel wrote an essay, and he mentioned in it that freedom and democracy are no longer compatible. For me, that's a bit like saying elections don't work. He also believes that tech and AI can change the world. Probably agree with him. So he's been working on politics, as I said, and trying to bring change since probably 2009. But in 2012, he's been trying to change policy in the USA and politics. In 2012, he gave a very large donation to a presidential campaign for the Republican candidate Ron Paul. Many were confused and asked why, because they thought it was a doomed campaign. And when he donated that much, he said he was just trying to build a libertarian base for technology. He basically meant for the next cycle of election, which would have been 2016 election. Some of that information is from Slate magazine. In 2012, he stated he was against democracy and voting, especially women voting. He feels that voting is really an inefficient way of doing things. He's been stated, on the other hand, technology, when unregulated, you can change the world without getting approval from people, and it's not subject to democratic control and subject to the majority, which he believes often are hostile to change. That's why he just doesn't like elections, I think. So you notice he said world there in that quote. He didn't just say USA. Like I said, sometimes when I listen to him, I do enjoy listening to him, which is strange. I think it's because he's so well read and interesting. So I think he's kind of saying you can do away with elections. I mean, he's been stated as saying that technology is an alternative to politics. In his book, he kind of quotes historical moments in history, like, you know, when elite networks come together. He talks about and making the society move forward. He talks about the Renaissance, I'm going to pronounce that right. He talks about mid-century America and obviously the Industrial Revolution in England. And he's basically saying that the work of those people, a few elites, they come together and they developed common ground to move society forward. And we know it's moving at great speed with tech and what's happening to the administrative state in the USA at the moment. And a few weeks ago, Trump handed down tech individuals a big win. So Congress failed to pass a federal ban on state AI regulations. So the White House drafted an executive order, Trump signed it, directing the Justice Department to sue any state in the United States that passes an AI regulations. So that was a real big win for tech. So he's been a real big figure integrating tech world into the MAGA political landscape. So while he has no job in the Trump administration, he's kind of in the background, using his influence in shaping policy. There are many others. I'm just focusing on a few today. I was reluctant to mention what I'm about to mention, but I'm going to do it anyway. As we're aware, tech individuals and billionaires are desperate for a different type of USA. No tech regulations, low taxes, individual freedoms, whatever that means. They're obsessed with individual freedom. So it's freedom over equality, as we know. Individual freedom over equality, if you know what I mean. So although, as I said, although this might sound odd, 10 years ago, Peter Thiel wanted to build like corporate states. He was involved in seasteading. I'll just write it for you so you've got my phone. Seasteading. It's a movement providing, it's like a project, it's aimed to create autonomous floating nations, states in international waters. He donated 1.7 million to the project. Obviously, he backed out of that. He saw the logistic issues and political changes, so he backed out. And the purpose, obviously, as I said, it's for the elite to operate outside the jurisdiction of like existing nation states like the USA and to avoid government oversight and taxes and so forth. Some call them network states. Obviously, there's a lot of conspiracy out there, so be careful what you read. And Trump, in his inauguration speech, he alluded to something similar, and he mentioned freedom cities. I'm not sure if they're the same. So there was mention in the media recently about like a network state or a seasteading city. It was called Prospera, and that's in Honduras. Right. It's been said that it's like a trial network state. It's championed by countries predecessor, the ex-president, who, by the way, was pardoned by Trump a couple of weeks ago from a 45-year life sentence when he was convicted in the USA in 2024 for drug trafficking. And the media and some Republicans believed the pardon was absurd and left many people confused why he was doing that. So many tech, as I say, billionaires have invested in Prospera. Peter Thiel was an early investor, as I said, in seasteading through venture capitalist firms like Renomos, who do most of the investing in places like Prospera. But as I say, I know he's backed out of seasteading, Peter Thiel. But the connection there, the current woman president, or actually she just lost last week in the election, her name is Xiomara Castro of Honduras. She went to the Supreme Court to appeal about Prospera in 2024, and the Supreme Court declared the zones unconstitutional. Now Castro, she's a lady president, Castro called it corporate colonialism. It sounds a bit conspiratorial, but she went to court, she was against it, she was the president of Honduras. This has been written in the new about these places have been written in the New York Times, in Bloomberg. I'm not just getting them from strange videos. They wrote on the subject. So you can see the lengths that techs will go to try and get these unfettered, regulated, low taxes places. Back in November, talking about the new president of Honduras, which happened last Wednesday. Back in November, Trump publicly backed a right-wing Honduras candidate. His name was Nasri Asforez. It was in the Washington Post last week. He won the election, and Trump posted on Truth Social that he was, you should be backing this guy, right? He's a right-wing candidate, and kind of, I think someone in the Washington Post mentioned that she thought that probably a lot of the people in Honduras voted for this right-wing candidate because they were frightened of Trump taking away any foreign aid, and they realized that would have a detrimental effect on their lives. So there's a little bit there about Prospera, seedsteading. There's a connection with Trump for some reason. I'm not going to make anything up. I'm just saying it's there. He wanted a new president elected. He was right wing. I just wanted to show how far people go. And, as I say, they've been delayed. Technology's been delayed because of democracy, afraid of what AI can do negatively. So I'm just going to talk about data information. And as we know, we're in an information war. We saw the data information that affected the 2016 election, with the Cambridge Analytica. So in 2016 election, the issue was around Cambridge Analytica using Facebook data. Remember that? I think Alda Tess brought it to our attention. So the scandal with Facebook data. So that scandal came to court in the US, I think, in 2018. And at the time, Palantir was not a direct client of Facebook, but there has been investigations related to their direct involvement. So with Cambridge Analytica in 2018 scandal. So you probably remember the whistleblower, Chris Wiley, who talked about Cambridge Analytica. He claimed that a senior Palantir employee did informally work for Facebook data harvested by an app developer called Global Science Research, which was the center of the Cambridge Analytica scandal. Facebook did an investigation to see if Palantir had improper access to the to user data. And it went to court in the US, and the Senate hearing about the Cambridge Analytica scandal, a Senator Maria Caldwell asked Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook if he thought that Palantir had ever scraped data from Facebook, and he replied, "I'm not aware of that." So I'm not saying Palantir had any involvement with 2016 election, Cambridge Analytica scandal, but I'm just trying to give you one example of how data in the wrong hands can have a detrimental effect on the world. Any questions? So when I did my last study on administrative state early on in the year, we talked a bit about Elon Musk. I don't want to talk about...
Natalie, sorry,
Yeah.
I was walking to my device. Sorry to take you back. Could you just repeat the point you made about the UK, the NHS, and
Yeah.
what's that?
So the NHS, did you say?
Yeah, and the Ministry of Defense. That the point there. I think I missed it.
Yeah. So I believe Palantir have been lobbying to try and get some contracts in the United Kingdom for a few years now, and they got a contract with using Palantir's tools, obviously, for the NHS. So I'm not saying anything strange going on there. I'm just saying that their tools, they do work very efficiently, collecting data for the NHS, making sure everything's efficient and working right. So they won a 1.5 million contract with the NHS. I think that was last year, it might have been this year. And with regards to the Ministry of Defence in the United Kingdom, I haven't looked, but I don't recall them winning any contracts there yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So we know what Elon Musk did with Huge. Is that how you say it? We already know that, and I talked about it in my last presentation. So I'm not sure when he sort of dismantled the Department of, I can't remember what the G stands for now. I don't know whether he has collected any data from the different departments as he was, going in there and sorting them all out, whether that data will be integrated, what they call data fusion, like combining different data sets from different places. So I'm not saying he's done that, but there would have been a lot of data within all these departments on I'm not going to go through the different departments, but we know that Elon was responsible of going in there and taking all that down.
Natalie, that stands for Department of Government Efficiency.
Thank you. So I don't know how he was very efficient at taking it down, but I don't know if any data was collected and put onto the cloud. I'm not going into anything that I don't know of. I'm just saying there would have been a lot of data there. So Elon Musk, even though he fell out with Trump, he left, he's still friends with him. He's still influencing Trump and probably policy. We know that the things that are happening in the US government now are irreversible. The Lancet's a good magazine, I think. They mentioned that 14 million people will suffer due to, and some will die due to what Elon Musk did with foreign aid and so forth. Also, he's not just messing around with the US government, he's destabilized and influenced politics in Europe. He endorsed a right-wing candidate, right parties. So endorsing right-wing parties. He's For an example, the one, I think it's the Alternative Germany's ADF in Germany. He was rebuked for doing that. And he's also had some influence in the UK with the Reform UK Party, I think it's called. And he's also had a little bit of influence in Ukraine due to his internet service, Starlink. Now, what he did there was he denied access to Starlink to Zelensky when they needed it for an attack that was happening from Russia in a fleet in Crimea, and he was greatly criticised for that. Regarding his ideology, well, I think he's a bit all over the place. He doesn't call himself a Christian, but he does have strong values, beliefs on how society behaves and how government should be run, obviously. I'm not going to go more into that. Anyone got anything else to contribute with regards to Elon Musk? So I don't want to talk much about MAGA, the religious side, some of the elite there, but just to say that the MAGA Republicans we see today, they seem slightly different from those in 2016 and 2021. Like the Trump administration in 2024 and 2025, it kind of seemed like it marked, well, maybe put that as a Sunday, it marked a divergence from the different style of Christianity of MAGA world once embraced. So I think they're more political. I know they're always political, but they're more political. They're very strong with their social beliefs, I think. And we used to see like the MAGA types, you know, the Stop the Steal, the campaign that led to the Capitol insurrection in 2021. And today, when we look, we see a lot of young people. We see the Theo Bros, and in their political engagement, they're more sophisticated. They use social media. They use different strategies and high profile connections. They use podcasts. They align very much so with the far right politics and support they get support from like JD Vance, Donald Trump, and they're known for obviously their misogynistic, of course, and they're traditionalists, having, you know, hyper masculine values. They're pronatalists, which basically means their belief in having lots of children. It's important for the state. I've mentioned that before. Which basically aligns with Elon, with Teal, JD Vance, and they're operating, as I said, through different ways. They do operate through Pacific Church networks, but they're aiming more on the younger population, young men. So that's enough for the religious side. Unless anyone wants to contribute, I'm not really into talking about the religious side of MAGA. I will stick with the politics. So we know Peter Thiel has been a major influence on JD Vance, but it's been said that they've both been influenced by certain speakers, thinkers, philosophers. I'll just name a few. Peter Thiel. So we've got Rene Girard, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. We've got Carl Smith. And we've got the other one. And then we've got Curtis Robinson. No, I'm only joking. Curtis Yarvin. So there's a lot of strange beliefs out there when you read up on these individuals, but I just want to mention that it is hard to find out how Peter Thiel thinks, because he has thoughts from many different thinkers and philosophers. He's a very intelligent guy. So Peter Thiel, he's been criticised for having a fusion of beliefs which often involve blending elements of different philosophies, as I said, religions and ideologies. And as I said, he does influence J.D. Vance quite a lot. They've been good friends for many, many years. So critics argue that Peter Thiel's blend of right-wing politics and techno-futurism resembles paganism by prioritizing power and control over religious values, and his thoughts basically on existential threats. And they've publicly cited those that I've put on the board. And the media believes that these, obviously these individuals have some strange opinions with regards to how government should be run, how the world should be run, how society should behave. So René Girard, he's a French-born thinker on faith, culture and war. Both J.D. Vance and Peter Thiel obviously have been known to cite him and his thoughts regarding human behaviour and and scapegoating. His writings also contributed to J.D. Vance's conversion to becoming a Catholic. That was all down to Girard. And then we've got, I won't go on to talk much about Carl Schmitt. Thiel cites him quite a lot. Among other things, he argued that political order demands a strong leader. Schmitt used his legal expertise to provide an ideological foundation and justification for the Nazi regime and their actions. I think later on he apologized for that though. One of the ones I want to really talk about is Curtis Robinson. I'm only joking, Curtis Sharvin. Now, he has a great influence on Peter Thiel, J.D. Vance. He's had an influence on Trump. He was actually a guest of honor at the US Press Trump's coronation ball in January 2025. He's also involved in tech, but he's more of a political theorist, and he has got some strange thoughts. But I think what he kind of, if you let me just use the word predicted, how the Sunday law would look like, it's quite phenomenal. So Curtis Sharvin, this guy, he is, I'll just put CY, he is anti-democratic, of course. He is pro-Trump, of course. He's been known to be, I don't want to call anyone names, but he's been known to be a neo-Marxist. How do you say that? I've said that wrong, haven't I? Monarchist. He's got neo-monarchist views, the media have said. And he's as I said, he's a significant influence, I feel, to the new right. We won't go into the new right. Curtis Yarvin believes that democracy has failed. He thought that a long time ago, and should be replaced by a centralized authority, a CEO, government, using democratic methods to dismantle democracy. So using democracy to dismantle democratic, does it say? Democratic methods to dismantle democracy. I'll reach my board, sorry about the writing. And he wants to install an absolute ruler. He's known for coining the name cathedral. I'll put it here because you might want to look into it. Called the cathedral. Got that wrong. It is basically, the cathedral describes the main institutions of the US, like academia, media, the administrative state, and how they should be run. So that's what is written in all the information that he calls the cathedral. If the media is correct, I believe he had written the following before it had happened. That's why I said, if you could allow me saying predicted back in 2012. So he said, quoting him, whoever is president of the USA, they needed to, this is 2012, they needed to fire all civil servants, replace them with those that are loyal, to centralize leadership. He believed that the government funds should be seized, they should be redirected to a more worthwhile pursuits, and any court orders pushing back to these measures as unconstitutional should be ignored. Now we've seen all that happening. The press should be managed, it should be censored when necessary. And finally, universities, scientific institutions should have their funding terminated. So these moves resemble many that have been made in the first 100 days or so of the second Trump administration, the last 15 months, whatever year. And they're all laid out in 2012 by a prophetic year for us, by the way, Sunday law, by one single person called Curtis Sharvin. So maybe if we had seen that back in 2012, maybe you would have been able to foretell what the Sunday law looked like. So he's also got a movement called the NRX. And it's actually called the New Reactionary Fringe Movement. So that's enough about him, but I think he's very influential with Trump, and those I've mentioned. He predicted how a government the Seven Kingdoms should look like, what it should be done. He's a billionaire, and he also influences Trump, as I said. He does have some strange beliefs, and maybe that's why for the past decade, media and the people of the USA haven't really took much notice. Haven't seen his thoughts as a great threat to the United States or his influence. I think that was a big mistake. If you look at the word technocracy, I don't like calling people names or using odd names, but technocracy was thought to be a utopia back in the 1930s. It was about making a new economic system. So yeah, I find obviously back then they knew they didn't have the technology to advance in things they wanted to do, their economic system. So like I said, I think if there was a crisis, they could bring a new financial system in, a digital system in without sounding too conspiratorial. And in doing that, they would have a lot of power over people to agree with them. It sounds a bit like the Ellen G. White scenario, no buying and selling, but I don't want to go into that. I just think that the information war, we see it with China and the USA, they're battling it out for getting who's going to be the quickest and the best with AI technology. It's all about information and data. So I can see, I just find it phenomenal that we have got to this point and the individuals, techs who already knew what they were going to do.
So Natalie, this guy who's doing this, it sounds like he's trying to consolidate power, isn't he, really?
Yes, consolidating.
When you talk about centralised, it's about consolidating all this power and stuff, isn't it, really, which is what he's up to.
Yes, and it's already happened, hasn't it? I mean, his thoughts have already been actioned, that I've just mentioned, with regards to how things should be run, like dismantling all the institutions, not listening to the Supreme Court, pushing ahead anyway, which they have done with certain cases with immigration.
I think when they do that as well, it goes unchallenged, doesn't it?
It goes what, sorry?
Unchallenged.
Yeah, some have not. Some go challenge because the Supreme Court has just stopped Trump with something about immigration in a city, a state yesterday. So it doesn't always go their way, but it's a quicker progress than it was with the Democratic Party. The regulations that have been going on for the last, I think Peter Thiel were complaining for the last 20 years that it's been so slow. They haven't been able to progress because of all the regulations. And I do feel that technology is going to be a big help. Just like, in the internet boom in 2000, having the internet has helped us. Here we are speaking, doing church on using the internet. But I think there's a dark side. And if it's like in Cambridge Analytica, if it's used in the wrong way, it can have a detrimental effect on individuals in the world. So I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just putting the facts out there. But I do think that it was phenomenal how this Curtis as well. I mean, they're all phenomenal what they've done, the power in them, the power of money, what they've done really with what Curtis said years before and how it's all played out in the words that he spoke and how he was invited to Trump's as a guest of honor to Trump's one of his press conferences in January 2025. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, Natalie, can you just say who Curtis Yarwin is again? Who was he?
Curtis Yarwin. He is a tech person, but he's more of a political theorist. He is related to tech. He's a good friend with Thiel. They try to mellow that down a little bit, but they are friends. Right, okay. He's an unusual thinker, very intelligent man. It's best just to look him up, but just be aware of a lot of conspiracies out there. There's a lot of name calling. There's a lot of information that is just not true. I would think there's no evidence of it, but I do think there's cause for concern.
And how is he working with Peter Thiel? How was he involved with him?
I'm not sure. I haven't looked into any businesses or investments that they've actually done together. But they're friends, and Peter Thiel quotes Curtis Yarvin's writings, obviously, when he has talks and when he speaks to universities or if he does a talk online. And they are friends, but they're quite low key about that. But it's more what he said in 2012, and it's all played out in 2024, alhamdulillah. Any other contributions or questions?
Natalie, would you be able to send that copy of the board on the forum?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I'll do a summary now then, if no one wants to comment.
Hi, Natalie. I
was waiting for Blessing. I thought I want Blessing to comment on the religious side of MAGA.
Well, that's not what I'm commenting on, but Curtis Yarvin is a software engineer, I think.
Yes, that's right.
And I don't know if you mentioned this, but that first guy you mentioned under Peter Thiel plus JD Vance, don't know how to pronounce his name, Rene Girard, that French guy.
Rene Girard, yeah.
Yeah. He is the guy responsible for coining the term the Great Replacement Theory.
Yes,
So the theory has always existed that, the West is being invaded by mostly Islamic, but also African immigrants, and they're taking over Europe, they're taking over the United States, and they need to be resisted. So the term the Great Replacement Theory, he's responsible for it. He put it together in 2010. So
right. I didn't know that. I don't think I read that about him, but it was probably there. It's just, I know it looks easy. You put together a little study here, but it takes weeks and weeks of reading and trying to get to understand their minds. I'm not academic at all, and these men are very academic. They're very clever individuals, well read, like Rene Girard. He's a professor. Carl Smith, I'm not sure about him. Curtis Yarvin, Thiel, they're all very clever individuals, and to try and bring into a small presentation how they think, what they're doing, what they want for the future was very hard. But yeah, thanks for that contribution about him. He is a Catholic. He's a professor. I think he might have died now, but he's the one who helped convert JD Vance to be Catholic as well. Thank you. Any other contributions?
I have one more.
Yeah.
just in terms of the beliefs of these people, they don't really believe in individual autonomy or individual freedom. What
No,
they really believe in is freedom for the powerful. That's what they believe in.
absolutely.
Yeah. So
Absolutely. There's a book I'm reading at the moment. I've only done the first 30 pages. I wasn't going to be presenting today, and I did it last minute. I felt guilty. So there was a book that I read about. It's called. I haven't read it, as I said. It's called the Sovereign Individual. The preface is done by Teal, and what caught my eye was these two gentlemen that wrote the book. They predicted the coup of Gorbachev, and they also the kind of said what was going to happen to the collapse of the Soviet Union. They also predicted the collapse of the war with Yugoslavia. So it kind of caught my eye, and especially because Teal did the preface, and it's about sovereign individual, and this is where they're all about freedom, and for those special elites who have the power. I hate using the word elite, sounds conspiratorial, but it's true. They want the power just for a few, like you said. But yeah, it's an interesting book. I'm only in the first few pages. But predicting the coup of Gorbachev, that got my eye as well, because that's 1989 for us, 91. Any other contributions? Thanks, Blessing.
G'day, Natalie. It's Raymond here.
Who? Sorry. Hi, Raymond.
Hey, how are you? Just with what you and Blessing were discussing just there, I remember uh, with prayer meeting back in Australia, we'll take turns going through different articles, and a couple of people have done one that was shared um, at the start of this year from memory. That discussed the sort of the core identity of the US population and how it was founded through rebelliousness, but then it returned in the revolution, but it returned to lawfulness when they created the Constitution. But in that article, they talk about how people keep comparing Trump to, I think, Emperor Nero,
Right.
or sorry, Julius Caesar.
Mm.
But actually, if you look at history, he's more like the emperor that was before Caesar, who sort of steadily eroded the democratic norms in the Roman government and returned Rome to the sort of oligarchical elites.
Who was that? What
I
was
can't remember the name of that Roman emperor.
Blessing will tell us. Was it Constantine?
I don't think it was Constantine. It was one I hadn't heard of before.
So,
But
in fact, in the time of Caesar, it was still the Republic. You didn't really have Caesars, but there was a notable dictator whose name was Lucius Cornelius Sulla. So I don't know if that's the one you're talking about. He was known for very, authoritarian actions before Caesar. So,
Right.
but in terms of emperors came after Julius Caesar.
Right. Thank you both. So anything else? I'm just going to summarize now. If there's no more contributions, I'll just go over what I always do a quick summary. Sorry about that. So we've looked at certain elites, billionaires who've been influencing policy and Trump and the Seven Kingdom, whether that's Palantir with the the operation tools, the data collecting across different institutions in the US, partnership with the US government, making more things efficient, obviously, but also there's some risks there of privacy and civil liberties maybe. Also, they worked with immigration. They're still doing that with deportations, using their AI tech on the ground in wars with Israel and Gaza, and getting large contracts with the NHS in the UK. And they are trying other countries as well. We know that Trump's trying to, and others around him are trying to influence far right presidents to take over, leaders to take other countries. I mentioned about Trump and Prospera, Honduras, about going on Truth Social, is it called, trying to support and get this right-wing leader elected last week, which did happen. And then I mentioned about how the Washington Post posted that maybe the people of Honduras were frightened of, tariffs or how foreign aid would affect their lives, and that's why this right-wing president was voted in, because the lady president before him, that was a big election as well 4 years ago. All the people voted for her. So things are changing. People are getting scared. There's also these, when I talked about Prospera, there's places in Africa as well where they're doing these trial places. I can't remember the names of them, but I didn't mention them. So there's no final last words. Oh, I forgot to, obviously it's the last thing I mentioned was about Kersashavan and his beliefs, and back in 2012 how he mentioned all the things that have happened at our Sunday Law Waymark with the USA's government. So if there's nothing else, thank you for your contributions. We'll kneel and pray. Dear Almighty God, we thank you for fellowship. We thank you for the Sabbath. I thank you for having the internet. We've had a lot of troubles. I thank you that I was able to present these things. I pray that I haven't said any untruths or anything that would offend anyone or yourself. We pray for these individuals, Lord, that they will turn from any ways that are not of your ways. We should be praying for them, not calling them out and calling them names. We pray for the people in the United States, but this is happening. These things are happening throughout the world. It's spreading. We're heading towards, Lord, where we will see the whole world follow and worship the beast. Pray that you will help us to have our lives in order, our hearts, our families. And we pray for all those who are afraid, lonely, and just don't have the truths that we have today in this movement and are wondering what's going on. There is a sense, Lord, that the end is near. Even if you're not a Christian, you know. So we pray, Lord, that you will win many back to your kingdom. Pray that you will be with us and we will meditate upon these things today that I've presented, and where we are in history. In Jesus' name I pray and give thanks. Amen.